Welcome to Books and Beyond with That Guy Jay. I am your host, That Guy Jay. Thank you so much for joining me again this week. This week, I am joined by a special guest, Claude. He's one of my mutuals on BookTok.
Yo, I'm here. Finally.
I, I appreciate you joining me. Real quick before we jump into it, if you could just hit that like button, and if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. Really helps the algorithm. I appreciate you guys. Now, real quick, I start everyone with an easy question so that you can get comfortable with the interview. What are you currently reading?
I'm cur I'm already smiling. I'm currently reading Salem's Lot by Stephen King.
That's actually one of my favorite Stephen King books. I feel like it gets overlooked a lot because it's a little bit slower paced than his other books, but
I'm
such
obsessed
a good
right now.
one.
I'm obsessed right now. So, all right, so this whole year I've been reading Stephen King because I was not a Stephen King fan. I wasn't against him, I just had not gotten into it.
Yeah.
So I started reading him this year, and I'm kind of an I'm ki can I are we allowed to curse on here?
Oh, yeah, yeah, no
All
worries.
right, so I'm kind of I'm that asshole that likes to go the opposite way that everyone tells him to go just because I don't want to do the popular thing. So right from the jump, everyone's like, you have to read The Shining, you have to read Salem's Lot, you have to read Pet Cemetery, you have to read Carrie. And so I literally put those off for a long time. So I read like the Bill Hodges all kind of stuff, and I loved it. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna finally like cave in and read Salem's Lot. And everyone was right. It's so good. It's so freaking good.
It's so good. It's such a slow burn, and the way that he does characters well in general, but especially in Salem's Lot, like you really have the time to get to know everybody, and you feel like you're part of that community,
Yes,
and
yes.
it gets so spooky. I have
So
I I have a
no, no.
weird journey with Stephen King because way back in the day, I read one Stephen King book, and I didn't really know anything about him other than he wrote scary books, and I read a book called Dreamcatcher,
Mhm.
and it's, like, pretty universally considered one of his worst books, and so I didn't hate it, but I was like, "That was okay," but I didn't get the hype, so it was like I probably went, like, 10 years before I read another Stephen King because I was like, "They're not that good," but it was just that book.
No, see, I think I might have seen like Firestarter the movie or something like that back in the day, and I was like, this is terrible, so I'm not interested. And it was the same thing because I mean, you can't really be in pop culture and not know something Stephen King because
Right.
his books have been made into movies and all kind of stuff. So I knew at some point I'd try and to see again what all the hype was about. And I can honestly say like I see what the hype is about. Some books I like more than others, but he has so many that's bound to happen. But I read did you read Needful Things?
I haven't yet.
So Needful Things is the same kind of vibe as Salem's Lot. It's like a whole town and all the characters are doing things. It's kind of similar. I actually kind of didn't realize that he had that kind of a pattern, but it's way bigger. It's like 800 or 900 pages. It's insane. But all this to say, I'm reading Salem's Lot right now.
Now that's a good one. I was thinking about, rereading that at some point because I've read it's been years, but that was one of my favorites.
Well, now you gotta tell me which one I gotta read after this one because I want to keep the streak going of good Stephen King books. So I'm taking recommendations.
Have you read 11/22/63?
I have. Now that's the first one. That was my gateway drug. So in January, I read 11/22/63, just not even expecting to get hooked. And that book was awesome.
Yeah, I don't recommend anyone read that as their first Stephen King because I think it's to me, that's towards the peak. It's not gonna get much better than that, and it's also pretty different from his other books, so it's not gonna give you the best idea. But once you've read a few, that's the one I always, push people towards, but let's see, have you read Pet Cemetery?
No, I haven't yet. That's what I've been that everyone says I need to read that one.
He said many times that's the scariest book he's ever written,
Okay.
and I'm not sure I agree, but it's up there for sure.
Okay.
But that book is amazing because I think it hits on so much more than just being scary. I think that it's a really interesting look into grief, especially with parents,
Mhm.
and how it impacts them and choices that are made out of it. And it's also very scary on top of that. I think his scariest book is, for me at least, was either The Shining or Misery. Misery so un is so unsettling to me.
Misery might be his scariest for me too. I
Annie
agree.
Annie Wilkes is a terrifying character.
And you wanna know why also? Because when okay, so Misery is the book that by him that I read a long time ago and forgot I had read when I said I hadn't read any Stephen King, and I've seen the movie as well many times, it's a classic. But when that movie when it became a movie, it was awesome, right? Kathy Bates was an amazing Annie Wilkes,
Yeah.
but the reason that book is even more scary now is that obsessive fan culture has become so much crazier. Like, at the time, that
Yeah.
was, like, you couldn't even fathom that that would happen, and now, like, with social media and the internet and all the crazy things you see online, you're like, "There's so many Annie Wilkeses out there in the world."
It's relevant now more than ever.
Which
Now,
makes it easier.
yeah. Have you always been a reader, or were you like for me, I didn't get into reading until my 20s, and then I've like taken a couple breaks here and there, but as a high school student, refused to read. I just wouldn't do it.
I guess I was yes, I've always been a reader, um, but there's always, like you said, those times where you take breaks because, like, in high school, you're also being kind of assigned books, so it feels like when they're forcing you to do it, it's not as fun.
Yeah.
But, some of those books I look back on now, I'm like, "Man, like, I wish I'd appreciated that book more than at the time." I've reread some of them, but I took breaks for, like, you're focusing on life or your job or whatever, but overall, my whole life I've been a reader, which kinda blows my mind because 'cause I'm in my 40s now. So, sometimes I see books going viral on TikTok or on BookTok, and I'm like, "I read that, like, 20 years ago." Like, that's
Yeah, it is interesting how it works, and it seems to be like things come in cycles too, where it's like some of the stuff that was popular when I was first on Book Talk, I'm seeing like there's a new wave of people getting into Book Talk that are
right.
reading those books that were viral 3 years ago.
Exactly. I'm like, I've been down this road before, but that's the thing about books is that people discover them at different times, and you want that to happen. But it is
Yeah.
definitely it is weird because I have been reading for so long to see things kind of like take a new life.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's like I remember reading, The Handmaid's Tale, reading. I read a lot of Cliff Notes in high school. I'm of that age too. I'm 41, so it was like very early internet, but Cliff Notes were a thing.
Yes.
But then The Handmaid's Tale, because of the show, it's like has a whole new life now where I've seen people getting into the book, and I just reread last month Hatchet, which was probably the only book in middle school
Ooh.
that I enjoyed, and I'm trying to revisit some of that stuff too. Some of them I for sure skipped and said I read, so it's like I probably should go back to them.
Probably go back and check it out for real. But some of those books, like some of those books, this goes over your head, like why they're forcing you to read them. Some of them are just because they're classics; they make you read them. You
Yeah.
you should try and go back and read some of them because what blows my mind is how certain books have a different meaning as you go through different phases of life.
Absolutely.
So like you're reading a book, and as a teenager, let's say a 20 in your 20s, there's just it's speaking to you in a totally different way. You're not even it's not even that you're not even catching the things that a 4-year-old would catch in the book.
Yeah.
It's just going over your head. And so I'll be reading it now and I'm like, holy shit, like this is deep.
Yeah.
And and it's crazy how like a great book, some of those high school books can do that. I read Animal Farm and I was like, all right, this had I now that I know what I know now and we've lived what we've lived, it's a totally different book.
Yeah, I've reread that, I think at the end of last year, and maybe it was a month or 2 ago, I reread Of Mice and Men,
Yes.
and it's like as I think maybe 10th grade is when we read that, and all we did as, being dumb teenage boys is, like, you focus on the movie and the acting of, him being the big dummy, and it's like, that's all you focus on is laughing
Right.
at it. It's like, "Oh, this is way sadder than I remember." Like,
What?
High school is sad, but it's like, "Oh, this is rough."
Exactly. So I'm kind of having fun. I'm actually it's a challenge of mine. I'm trying to read some of those books over again just so I can see if I still like them or convince myself to like ones that I didn't wasn't crazy about because maybe it is like you said I wasn't mature enough to
Yeah.
get it. But some of those like I'm learning that a lot of times classics are classics for a reason. Like there's a reason that generation after generation likes certain books.
Yeah, that's something that I figured out too, and that's what's like I've got East of Eden on my list, and I read, I guess it was last year, like Flowers for Algernon, which was another one that a lot of people read in high school, and there are a lot of them that it's like they were read by all generations for a reason,
For a
and
reason. East of Eden, I read it like 2 months ago, and that one I highly recommend. That book was awesome. And I was like, again, I was just like, this has so much more spiritual and political and just like life stuff in here that you just don't even absorb unless you've lived and seen some things. So you're gonna really enjoy East of Eden. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure.
that's what I wanted to get to, and then, Dre on BookTok did a review of it and said that it's, like, his favorite book ever, and his reviews are so good that sometimes they make me mad because I'm like, "Ah, I wish I was that I wish I was that good at reviews," but it's like, I saw his and I was like, "Okay, I need to get to that sooner than I planned." I'm hoping
I feel
this
like
year.
if Dre likes a book, then like he's kind of the barometer. Like his
Yeah.
taste level is so high that if he says it's good, you're like, okay, okay, like this really is good. And I saw that too. He loved that book, and I read it, and I co-signed that. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I'm excited to get to that. Now, when you were younger and you were, reading, was it different genres than what you're currently reading? Because I found myself, especially through Book Talk, I've been exposed to so much more that I think I read more genres now than ever.
Yeah.
Um, how has that happened for you? Is it similar or
No, definitely. Okay, so I've always loved fantasy, and I've always loved. Both, let me say, I've always loved fiction, and I've always been a fantasy fan. Like I've always been into like, uh, of course, I read the whole Harry Potter series, and Lord of the Rings, and um, when I was a kid, my favorite was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I've always loved fantasy, King Arthur lore, wizard lore, all that kind of stuff. So that's always been a part of my life. And then, of course, that translates into the movies that do the same, like Lord of the Rings and The Neverending Story when I was a kid, and all that kind of stuff. I've always had that. And on like the kind of edgier side, I've always loved sci-fi and thrillers, like Jurassic Park. The book is one of my favorite books of all time, and the movies are my favorite movies of all time. Like those kind of things have always been a part of my life. And then when I was like in college and beyond, kind of going into like, my music career, I got really into like the self-help book thing because you're trying to find yourself. And it
Right.
kind of became like, I, I guess I wouldn't say I shunned fiction, but it was definitely like it was more cool in my mind to be reading, those books that sharpen your mind and make you a man and make you a better person and a more evolved person, all those things. So I definitely went through like a spiritual self-help phase. And then at some point, if you're actually doing the work, you kind of outgrow those books because at some point, they're all kind of saying the same thing.
And
Um,
that's what I've run into with them as well, is anytime someone recommends one and it's like, I'll check it out and it's like kinda skim through it and it's like, this is just rehashing the same thing as the all of, 5,000 that come out every year.
And I don't hate it because if you're looking for direction, right? And which means that you're starting at the beginning, you're looking for some advice, some career advice, some personal advice, some marriage advice, whatever it is, right? Then I can't really shun the books that are giving people the basic tools to help themselves. But there does come a point if you've read enough of them or you've applied enough of it where you're like, okay, this is definitely repetitive. And that's
Yes.
so it made me kind of grow out of that phase because I wasn't getting anything from it. And I was like, okay, duh, I get it. Like some of it becomes obvious to you at some point. So that led me back to fiction again. And again, you kind of always I've always been like fantasy sci-fi first. But what Book Talk has done is reminded me how much I love a couple of other things. Like I love historical fiction, and I've read a lot more because I'm getting the recommendations more. So books that I've seen a lot of times, but passed because I just it wasn't my genre. So a lot of historical fiction, a lot of just contemporary fiction in general. Um, and a lot more horror actually. Like when I was a kid, I loved horror movies. I never really read horror books, which is probably why I didn't read Stephen King. But horror has become one of my favorite genres now, and I'm not sure how that happened because I don't necessarily love to be scared shitless, but somehow reading it is very similar to fantasy. Like it's almost like if you take all like the bloodiest, goriest parts of fantasy and make it one book. That's what
Yeah.
horror is. That's what horror
And
is.
I think horror gets overlooked a lot because I think a lot of people's idea of horror is jump scares in movies,
You're right.
and
Right.
books can't really have a jump scare in that way, so they come at you psychologically, and I think that horror also explores a lot of just, like, the human condition a lot, like,
Exactly.
people in very real circumstances that are terrifying, and how do they react? And that's why I think in general, one thing that BookTok has done that's great is it's shown more people that genre fiction has more to offer than just being, like, I've seen some people back in the day that would relate them to, like, call them popcorn books.
Mhm.
And it's the example I gave earlier with Pet Cemetery. It's honestly one of the best explorations of grief I've ever read, especially if, like, I always tell people this, like, especially if you have kids. Like,
Yeah,
you'll notice it if you don't have kids, but if you do have kids, you're really going to notice what's happening to these parents and kind of empathizing and understanding some of the decisions that they're making that are terrible when you, like,
yeah.
are on the outside looking in, but, it doesn't have to be hard to digest or very, like, flowery prose or a classic to
Yeah.
tackle, real heavy subjects.
Well, that's also why I love horror too. Like you nailed it. It's 100% about the fact that like it's an exploration of the mind and dare I say the dark side of the mind, which is a reality for all of us. Like there's a yin and a yang to what our choices. Like there's a dark side and a light side, a good and a bad, and however you process that is however you process it. But I value the books that show you in both the most terrible terms and the most beautiful terms what that means, because a lot horror is not necessarily built to your point about just it being this just raging evil that's just there's the nuance of why people are doing things they're doing. And sometimes horror is difficult choices that are made from good intentions. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's a lot, there's so much to it. So to your point, I've learned so much about the human condition. It's not just slasher film kind of stuff. It's although listen, I do love like how I do love Freddy Krueger and all that stuff. That's great
Oh,
for what it
absolutely.
is. But I've really enjoyed it for that. I've read some books, like, I read Slewfoot this year by Brahm, which was, like, kind of like have you read Slewfoot?
I haven't, but I made a new TBR mug, and this is all, like, horror and fall books, and Slewfoot's one of them that's in there. I've got a couple Dracula and Slewfoot. If I don't pull those by, like, the 2nd week of October, I'm digging it through 'cause I'm gonna cheat because 'cause I'm getting to those 2 for sure.
Slewfoot and Dracula, ironically, are kind of like what I would consider new wave fairy tales. So, like, if someone were writing Edgar Allan Poe level, like, fairy tales today, it's what Brahma's doing. And obviously Dracula is a classic. My One of my favorites is Frankenstein by
Oh,
Mary Shelley.
Frankenstein's excellent.
Like, but those books really make you think. But Slewfoot is a masterpiece. It's one of my favorite books of the year by far. You're gonna love that book.
Yeah, I'm a just I was sold on the fact that it's, like, set in colonial times in New England. I'm originally from New England. I'm from Massachusetts originally, and
I went to school in Boston, so I know Massachusetts pretty well.
okay, I'm from Nantucket,
Okay.
little island off of Cape Cod.
Right.
Uh, yeah, so I went from Nantucket, which is tiny and isolated, and then, after I got out of the Navy, I moved to, New York City to go to college in Manhattan.
I'm from Manhattan. This is crazy. So we basically just
Yeah, I went to John Jay.
I grew up on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. I grew up in Stuyvesant Town.
Oh, okay.
So literally John Jay, I have friends who went to John Jay. I was always over there on the West Side. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I used to hang out on the Lower East Side. My friend lived, for a while, he lived across the street from Coyote Ugly
Yeah.
in, like, a tiny little, like, hole-in-the-wall apartment where the bathroom didn't even have a sink in it. The sink was in the kitchenette right outside.
New York singles.
He moved to, like, what was it, like, First, and he was right by Alphabet City, so we used to go out and hit all the dive bars down there in our 20s.
Some good bars down there. That's like a good bar area down there.
Yeah, it is, it's fun, it's like, we would look for the one that's the least crowded, find the type of dive bar where the bartender would give you the iPod and be like, "Yeah, pick a song,"
Yes, yes, yes.
it was a good time.
That's crazy. So we're from the same, like we're literally from the same
Yeah, we kinda
same
switched places. Where
100%.
where'd you go to school in Boston?
I went to Berkeley College of Music in
Oh,
Boston.
yeah, okay, that makes sense, yeah.
So
Now
I
that we
was
know your career, I feel like you dropped a bomb on everybody on Book Talk with that, because we all know you for diverse reading, fantastic reviews and recommendations, and then you're like, "Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm, like, a Grammy-nominated songwriter and musician."
Okay, okay, so can I tell you, in defense of that, right? Here's part of the reason why I joined TikTok was that I, my whole social media, I probably wouldn't even be on social media had it not been for the fact that you have to promote music. You have to do it.
Right.
It's part of the career now. So, and music is my world. It's been my world my whole life. I love it. It's my obsession, and but it's also put me in a place where all I see online is music related, which means you can never turn it off.
Yeah.
And I just got to a point where I like, there's no disrespect to my peers or that whole world, but I was just like, I want to meet interesting people that are doing hobbies that I love outside of this. So I purposely started. I didn't even have a TikTok account. I purposely started TikTok for the purpose of books and to meet people that were reading books and that would inspire me to read different kinds of books and that would have genuine friendships and conversations like this. So I didn't want to lead with, "Hey, here's all the cool things that I've done
Yeah.
with music," because then that would just be the focus of it, and I just did not want to talk about music at all. I wasn't hiding it all, but it's kind of funny because I don't think about it. It's just like I'm here, I'm talking about books, and I don't even realize that people don't know that. So I'd rather
Right.
say,
Yeah.
than I realized.
Well, that's my favorite thing about Book Talk is more so than any other online space. It's got so much community going to it. Like I've been on the internet since the forums days. I used to be involved on all sorts of forums, and I was a big car guy in my teens and 20s. And it's like I would meet people in real life. I would go to car events with people, and I made some great friendships, but there's something about Book Talk where in general, there's not a ton of drama. People are very welcoming. People are very encouraging.
Yeah.
That's like that's how I even started this podcast is like I don't have a huge following, but it's like I have enough people that watch my videos and talk with me, and I was like, "This would be interesting," and, they were like, "Oh, you should go for it," and it's been so much fun, but it's like, I've never seen this kind of support anywhere else online because a lot of online areas get very toxic, like,
It gets
basically anything on YouTube is bad.
well, the basically everything on Instagram too. Like,
Yeah,
I'm like you. I've been involved like MySpace days, AOL dial up day. Like it's been a long time and a lot of evolutions of this. And I can honestly say that I've loved some more than I've loved others. I haven't been on all of them, but specifically Book Talk has been one of the is not has not it's still here is one of the most special like special communities where it feels authentic. It's different people, so there's always going to be like some culture clashes and some opinions and some back and
right.
forth. I expect that, but even so, it's still done quite respectfully compared to a lot of other things going on the internet. So it's become kind of like my favorite place to go to, because you get inspiration, you laugh, you see your friends, you get opinions and ideas and book recommendations. We're all spending way too much money on books, so we're all in
Yeah.
the same boat. Like to me, it's just a win-win-win-win-win situation. And then not just me, but like you find out everyone is living these incredibly different but interesting lives. And so no one is here for like the career come up or for like the social come up. It's like, look at how this one Stephen King book, for example, is uniting all these different kinds of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what makes it, if you truly love diversity and to like have a community, then that's the amazing part is that you see that these books, some new, some really old, are uniting people without the angle of, all the stuff that kind of gets in the way. Just the money, the fame, the social climbing, the all the stuff that social media does is kind of not as prevalent, even though, it is a platform, but it just feels a little more authentic.
It really does, and the reality I think for most of the people, especially in the corner of Book Talk that we're in primarily,
Mm,
everyone's there almost everybody's there as a hobby, and they're there just because they
mm,
love the books and they want something to talk about, because I think Book Talk has helped get more people back into reading, but reading in general as a hobby is fairly niche, and then if you start talking about sci-fi and fantasy, it's like it shrinks that circle even smaller, and it's
yeah,
even more niche, and it's
yeah.
like, realistically, like, it's a bunch of sci-fi and fantasy nerds in our corner of the internet that wanna talk about what they read, because everyone in real life is sick of hearing us talk about it.
And what I love is that it's a place where you don't have to apologize for the fact that you're a freaking sci-fi and fantasy nerd.
Yeah,
And also to watch that community grow, like even commercially because of BookTok is
absolutely.
awesome. Like regardless of what your favorite is and what you disagree about, like watching the Brandon Sandersons of the world and the Pierce Browns of the world and the RF Kwong, all these people that are like super kind of like, blowing up because we're making a lot of noise and like, and it's getting bigger and bigger and saving bookstores and all kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Like, it's like, that's kind of cool.
And I know some people have issue with Barnes and Noble because they are also a big corporation, but at the same time, for a decade or more, they were closing stores, and now they're opening new ones for the
Listen,
first time that I can remember in a long time.
listen, I get it too, and I grew up in New York where there's that big flagship Barnes and Nobles right there.
Yeah.
And then I remember when Barnes and Nobles were closing, and before even Barnes and Nobles, I remember when all the Borders. Remember Borders?
Borders was awesome.
Borders was freaking awesome, and it's all fun and games until you have nowhere to buy books except for Walmart and Target in that one little aisle. Like, I get that. I want the whole ecosystem to happen. I want the indie bookstores to do well, but I'm not mad at the major corporation ones because it's getting people to books. And when they were not there, it sucked. It
Yeah.
sucks when I remember there was a couple of years where like there really weren't a whole lot at all, and that sucked.
Yeah,
It was hard to find them.
it does, and then I also love the crossover of, like, I'd never considered reading romance until Book Talk, and then I've become friends with a bunch of people that read romance, and I'm like, "Alright, let me give this a
Same.
try." And it's like, read some Emily Henry, and it's like, I read, Beach People, and I was like, "That was fun," like, and then I've gotten into to some of the crazy, weird, spicy books, and some of them were fun, some of them were too much.
Some a
S
little much.
like, the Dragon's Bride,
I
I'm
I have not
I'm
read The
good.
Dragon's Bride.
I'm good. But hey, you know what? I gave it a shot. I get why some people like it. It's like I'm not gonna poo-poo it. It's just not for me. But it's fun to try all these new things. Then even in the nonfiction space, for so long I kind of dismissed nonfiction because, like you were saying earlier, like I kind of went through and I read the self helps that seemed
Yeah.
applicable, and then through like especially like schizophrenic reads and
Mhm,
um Lauren reads history, and I've
mhm.
got a friend on there, Anna, and they read like almost entirely nonfiction, and
Yeah.
they've been giving all these recommendations for years for all these like subgenres of nonfiction that I never would have known of because, like in my head, I thought memoirs were just something that famous people wrote,
Same.
but it's like they're like I read In the Dream House, which blew my mind, and Crying in H Mart. I mean, she's
Yeah.
successful as a musician as well, but like she's not a household name. But
That's on the TBR to read in next month. Should I read Crying in
oh yeah,
Mark?
yep,
Okay.
it's fantastic. I read it, like, a week and a half ago. Um, it's heavy. It
Yeah.
it there's a lot of emotional stuff in it, and I'm sure there's parts of it especially that you would relate to as, like, the young, struggling musician living in a house with 5 other people trying to figure out what you're doing with your band. Those
Yes.
parts I'm sure you'll be able to connect to,
Okay.
as because you were a young musician once,
Yes.
and it's really good. It's a quick read as well. It's like I think, I did the audiobook. I think it was like 8 or 9 hours,
Okay. No,
but it's like
you're right about nonfiction because where books suffer the most, the book genre suffers the most is not marketing itself for the all the different kinds of cool genres there are. So like to your point, I've been reading my whole life and I'm still learning that nonfiction isn't so one dimensional. Like,
yeah.
'cause I'm just like, yeah, do I really want to read the Jimmy Carter memoir? Not like in my
Yeah.
mind it's celebrities and politicians and unless I really I'm not a kind of a fan of I'm not a fanatic person like that, so I don't necessarily care about following that stuff. But I discovered a bunch of great nonfiction as well. And what kind of segued me was some of the historical fiction I was reading.
Yeah.
So I read The Women by Kristen Hanna, and which is about Vietnam. And I'm like a history fan, like history documentary fan. Like I can
Me
watch
too.
hours and hours of Ken Burns documentaries. Like I'm into it and conspiracy theories and the whole political things and war all day. So when When I read the book, it was really good, and it got me thinking about the Vietnam War. And I started watching the Ken Burns documentary about it, and I was like, but 9 hours of a Ken Burns documentary is you could probably find a book that's 9 hours long and read it. And a documentary is just a visual nonfiction book. That's literally what it is. It's just a visual version of it. So I don't know why that didn't click until then. And so literally I was like, you need to be more open-minded about nonfiction. So like I actually bought a couple books about the Civil War time, but I'm just into like being open-minded to all that stuff because if it's well written, it's well written.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. And then I've also found that in nonfiction, there's I wouldn't even know how to categorize them. Like one of the best nonfictions I've ever read. It's a collections of essays. It's called "They Can't Kill Us Unless They Kill Us." Have you ever read that one?
look, I'm taking notes as we speak.
Okay, this one is also fantastic too. I always forget the author's name, and I'm bad about that. But the cover is like it's like a human body with a wolf head and like gold chains,
Mm.
and it's this guy, and he grew up in the Midwest, and he talks a lot about Midwest emo in the 2000s, and then kind of also the intersection of that of like being one of the only black kids that was into emo in the Midwest, and how racism became, a
That,
part of
that
that, and
what's that one called?
they can't kill us until they kill us.
Yeah, that sounds right up my alley.
And it's just a collection of his essays. He's a fantastic writer, first of all, but like I never would have thought years ago that I would just read essays and it would be one of the best nonfiction books I've ever read. And then I think of something like Braiding Sweetgrass, which is a native woman
That's
talking
on my
about.
list to read this month too, bro.
Oh, that one's so good. If you can get the audio, she narrates it, and
Happy audio.
there's something about her being able to say, the names of plants like in her language because I wouldn't know how to
Yes.
pronounce it reading it. I do a lot of immersive reading, so that's what
So
it's
do I.
with that one.
So do I.
But it's like getting to hear her speak about her culture and teach about the connection that her people had to the land and the plants especially.
Yeah.
And it's like for so long I would have just thought it's like nonfiction was World War II books and self-help. And it's like even within fiction, you can subgenre down to such niche things. Yeah, I
Exactly.
never would have known about it without Book Talk. It
No, and also like you said World War II books. Like I always thought everything was these sweeping stories, but there's so many like personal, like even with war, there's so many personal
Yeah,
perspectives and memoirs from different angles that you're not even thinking could matter. It's not just the history, like the textbook history book. Here's how the whole thing went and from A to Z. And it's really enriched my reading experience. Part of the reason I'm reading so much is because I've started to value the diversity of my reading. And listen, for me, we have a limited amount of time in a day, right? Like there's things
yeah,
you have to work, you have to do all the things you do, and then there's like what you do with your free time. And I I'm 44 years old and I grew up in New York City. Music as my main thing. I spent a lot of time watching TV growing up. It's our generation. Like I grew up on MTV, I grew up on cable television and loved it. And I'm proud of that. And to me, it's the best fucking era, like MTV classic, all VH1, all that stuff. So I kind of made a conscious decision. I was just like, okay, this you can't absorb it all, right? And technically at this point right now, I've watched enough television for a lifetime. That doesn't mean I'm never gonna watch TV again, but I wanted to kind of make a choice on what I was dedicating my evenings to, my free time to, if I'm on a plane, if I'm in a hotel. And so that's why I surprisingly have as much time as I have to read is that it's amazing how much time you have if you carve it out. And I also immersive read. But when I think I said all that to say when I think about how I used to watch TV, you watch a little bit of comedy, you watch some reality, you watch history, you watch a documentary, and that's kind of the same thing about how I'm curating my reading. So it's
yeah.
like you can watch 10 different television shows in your rotation all week if that's your thing, and there's all different things in there. So it's been cool for me to say, okay, let's try a little nonfiction and always some sci-fi and some fantasy and maybe some romance and some dystopian. Like I'm really having fun picking and choosing and finding what works based off my mood, based off the season, based off recommendations. That's kind of like my new adventure, is just trying to figure out how to make it a really full month.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite things that I've been discovering in the last couple of years is that how often my five-star reads are outside of my preferred genre.
Mm.
And it's like Kindred is considered sci-fi. I would
Mhm.
consider it more historical fiction because time travel is a part of the book, but it's not really important to the plot. It's
Right,
just something that happened. That's
right.
I whenever anyone asks what my favorite book is, it's Kindred. I reread it every year,
Well,
and I think that should be required reading in high school. I think they should throw that
I
one in
agree.
there.
I agree.
But it's like that's historical fiction, and I'm noticing a trend this year. A lot of them are historical fiction. Like,
Mhm.
have you read Stoner?
Yes, yes. I read that
Another
last. Stoner's great.
fantastic. Like Betty, The
Betty,
Reformatory blew me away.
Betty.
Betty was I
So Betty is why I bought braiding
Sweetgrass.
sweetgrass, because all that Native American lore and like
Yeah.
lust. I was like, I need more, I need more, I need more, and then it led me to the nonfiction.
Yeah, Betty, I have one daughter, and it's like as a girl dad, the relationship that she had with her father was so beautiful, and
Yes,
it's like you wanna talk about a good father. You wanna read a good father, it's him, and
so
that
amazing.
that book blew me away, and it's like I really like those slice of life where you're in their life for a long time, like decades, and you get to know them, and
I didn't know I liked that until this year. Like, I discovered this year that I that's why you're gonna love East of Eden, because East of Eden is that masterpiece. I just read uh The End of Loneliness, which you should read if you
who's
haven't
that
read
one
that.
by? I've heard of it.
By Benedict Wells.
Okay, yep.
It's the same kind of slice of life. You follow people like through generations as they get older, and there's just there's some those are the ones that break my heart when you start to when people who are young become parents, and then they
Yeah.
flat, and then they become grandparents. It is Pachinko. I read this year, was the same thing.
That
Pachinko
one's
was
on my TBR too. I've heard
same
great
thing.
things.
Slice of life book. That's kind of my sweet spot this year. I didn't know it was gonna be my sweet spot, but I love those kind of books.
No, me too, and I started to figure that out last year with, A Little Life, and I know that that book's not for everybody, and that book's super heavy, but the parts that really spoke to me about that book were seeing the exploration of especially male friendness, like 4 guys who have been friends since they were 18 years old, and literally what we see I don't know, 50-ish years of their life together,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
ups and downs of friendship, the breaks that they take away from each other,
yeah.
and, how certain friendships develop more on the side.
Yes.
One person ends up feeling left out, and it's like, you really you sat in their life. It also
I
takes
love
place
that.
in New York City. I'm a sucker for anything that takes place in the city because I love
Same,
sort
same.
but, like, that
I'm
book was
I'm gonna
again,
read.
it is really heavy, and there are parts that are very rough, and there's some people who call it trauma corn, and there's a lot of
Mhm.
trauma, but there was more to that book, and, like, you really, really get to know these characters and especially get to see their friendship, and, like, I don't think a lot of books do that and explore male friendship the way that this one did.
Hey, that's so funny because I totally agree with you. I'm actually I started that book. It wasn't even a DNF. I just started it, and then life got crazy and I never got back to it, and I kind of forgot I never got back to it. So it wasn't even a conscious
Yeah.
I'm putting this book down, but I have it. So I'm gonna you've inspired me to read it. But I agree with you. Like, there's okay, so here's how I see books evolving. There has been generations of lots of male dominated publishing, right? There's just like
Yes.
decades and decades and decades and decades of that. And then there's been a kind of a revolution of diversity, especially for women authors and authors of color. But with all that being said, to your point, even in the decades and decades of male dominated publishing, it's still hard to find books about male friendship. Like, you'll get the war books, and you'll get even the fantasy books and all stuff. There's friendship within there, but to your point, those kind of slice of life books that just talk about men growing old, and maybe
Yeah.
that is maybe listen, there's gazillion books. Maybe I just don't know them, but
Yeah,
I'm sure that
it's possible for me as well, but it's like I felt that way with Stoner as well. It's like he didn't even have great friendships, but it was interesting to see the few that he had and how they developed and like evolved
right.
over time. And it there really is just something to the slice of life books.
I love it.
Um, and then I do love another thing I love about Book Talk is we're getting to see so much more in terms of like fantasy that's developed in other cultures. Like
Yeah,
the Poppy War is based on a lot of real life stuff, but it's like it's really cool to see dragons have existed in almost every culture, but not in the
yes,
same way. But in terms of like published books and movies, it's very Eurocentric. It's very medieval. Like that's
definitely.
what we know, that's what we've always seen. But it's like it's cool to see the Rage of Dragons
Yeah,
in which is a, African inspired fantasy and they're dragons, but they're very different, and it's a really cool story. Same with, some of the Asian inspired fantasy. It's like they have these similar elements, but then they mix in a whole bunch of culture that we're not familiar with being American, like we didn't get to grow up with some of these tales that are more common for them. I think it's awesome.
100% agree. I'm reading the Dandelion Dynasty right now. I'm on the last book, which is called Speaking Bones. They're huge, but they are freaking brilliant, and they're Ken Liu, and they're built kind of roughly off of the Han Dynasty of Chinese history, but exact same thing. Like even the way the magic system works, and their dragons and all that stuff. It's just slightly different, in some ways very different, but and it has a totally different logical reasoning for why it all works and why dragons make sense and why the magic makes sense. It's totally foreign to how we see magic and fantasy, but it's so good. Have you read any of that?
I have the Grace of Kings. It's on my TBR. I have the first book. That's one I definitely want to get to. Uh,
It's good.
it's interesting. I saw this. It was I wish I remembered her name, but it was a very long TikTok, and she was getting into discussing the differences between like hard magic systems and soft magic systems.
Mhm.
And I had never realized this, but a lot of the traditionally, a lot of the hard magic systems are more Eurocentric, and some of the softer ones are more like, especially like in South American and African, and like they're they're looser with the rules and what happens because it's a little bit more like spiritual and like
Mhm.
mystical.
Yes.
And I've started to find that I really enjoy that, where it's like I don't need to know exactly why the magic works or how it works.
That's so
Like
interesting.
I don't need my character to either. Like I'm fine with learning along with them. The flip side is that like Mistborn is super cool, where each metal does a different thing. I enjoy that as well, but it's like
Yes.
I'm learning that the opposite side of that coin is also very fun.
I That's part of the reason why I literally just DNF'd the new RF Kwong book. I just talked about it online too.
I saw that.
And it was for that reason, because it's not that it's poorly written. People are complaining. Like there's the people that don't like fantasy, and they're always a little shocked when they pick up something because it's popular and it's not. Fantasy can be a turnoff if you don't love it all the time. And our
Yeah.
Quran is high fantasy with a lot of prose and stuff. So the complaint is that it's too textbooky, but that has not bothered me because I like everything you're talking about, the explanation. But I'm kind of swaying the way you are now, where the whole book is kind of a scientific, intellectual explanation for magic, hell, all that kind of stuff. But the reason I stopped reading was because it lacked some of the emotional, dare I say, magic that I think is more interesting. Also because, like you said, I'm really enjoying these slice of life books. I'm like, I hear you, this is all good, but you need to give me reasons why I love this character. You need to give me reasons why, like for example, and I'm not trying to like poo poo on the book because I think people should read it. And this is my opinion, but if and this is just from the beginning, if the premise is that the main character goes to hell, right? I don't care what happens. There's so much emotional and psychological and spiritual stuff that comes with if you wake up and you land in hell.
Yeah.
They're just like, who are you looking for? Why are you here? Did it confirm your spiritual beliefs? Did it go against all those things? All that existential crisis needs to happen, and it's because I'm used to like these slice of life books now. And so when that happened and it took off with the ground running with all the like this, like you said, the explanation stuff, I was like, wait a minute, hold on. Where's the emotional? So to your point, I'm starting to like fantasy that's a little bit more whimsical
Yeah, me
and
too.
light on the magic and less on the technical stuff because I kind of get it. Now I want you to like give me a sweeping story with magic involved.
Yeah, it's like, have you read any of Robin Hobb? I've got her books up here.
I okay, so I loved Farseer trilogy. I soft DNF Ship of Magic, not because I didn't like it, I just wasn't focused. But I love Robin Hobb. I love Fitz.
Yeah, see, I need to get to Ship
Yep.
of Magic, but like I think of her and she's very character focused
Yeah.
and the stories are a little bit slower, but then I think back where she was a little ahead of her time with this in some ways is that like there is a magic system, but it's like it is much softer. Like it's not even fully understood by the characters. They don't
Right.
fully get how it works. And it's like
Right.
even a little bit of a Song of Ice and Fire was like that. Like
Yes.
there was these White Walkers and no one really got it. And it's like
Yes.
and those are some of my favorite fantasy books where it's like it is like there's an unknown to it and there's no hard and fast rules. And I know it runs the risk of like if executed poorly, it can be used as a cop out because the main character will figure out some part of the magic at the last second to save the day. But it's like, but it doesn't always happen that way. If it's done well, like Robin Hobb does it really well, and it
And you know what's funny is that the other thing I love is that this you can approach fantasy from like literally like just cosmic, like it's coming from other like as big as other like the solar system, or it can be really small. And what I love the most is lately is fantasy with nature. Like, can you talk to animals?
yeah,
Can you control the trees? Can you like things that are literally worldly here? Like, are you able to summon all of the birds? That stuff for some reason I love more now these days than like some foreign planet magical system that's kind of like easy to just kind of explain away. I love when that's why I love like the relationship with Fitz, like the animal connections and can you
yeah.
see through the eyes of a wolf, that kind of cool stuff.
That to
Love
me, that's the best animal companion I've ever read.
Agreed.
He's kind of a jerk at times, but like Fitz needs it because
Night
so
Eyes? Yeah.
so Fitz also makes terrible decisions, and Night Eyes is like without hesitation will just tell me stupid.
Yes, yes. But I love that because, I love the idea that like that animals might know things more than we might know more than we do, and seeing
Yeah,
their eyes gives you super like you don't have to actually make something up, like, but just seeing through the eyes of a horse or dragons, whatever, makes you realize your world in a different way is a magic system that I love within itself, or just the ocean, because the ocean is fucking crazy.
it is.
It's just like that is fantasy in itself right there.
It is. No, I enjoy that a lot too, and it's like I don't get me wrong, I like Brandon Sanderson.
Me too. Me too.
When I love him, but it's like I'm finding myself having to like space reads out in his worlds a little bit more.
Mm.
I put a little bit of time between them. I'm also I mean I'm terrible at finishing series. I'm notorious for starting them. And somebody made fun of me.
Guilty.
They're like
Guilty.
they're like, "Oh, you're afraid of commitment?" It's like, "No, the opposite. I'm afraid of things ending." Like, I don't want book 3 to
Yes.
end, so I'll stop at book 2.
No, that's exactly like literally. I'm supposed to be finishing Dandelion Dynasty, which for that fourth book, and I had prolonged it for 3 weeks now because I don't want to get to I don't want it to end. Like that sucks. Like you get attached to these worlds, and so
Yeah.
yeah.
That's why I love something like The Realm of the Elderlings. There's so many books. It's like I can read a trilogy. I can take a year or 2 off and then jump back in with the next trilogy. Like
Right.
you don't have to read all 19 of them straight through.
I think I'm gonna because I know there's a suggested order. The Ship of Magic, when I was reading it, I wasn't so into like the pirate part of it all and the sentient ships.
Yeah.
But I think I might skip that trilogy and come back to it and go to which is the next one that has Fitz in it again? It's like
I think
Wolves.
it's the Tawny oh, no, that's later. I forget the name of each
Me
series, but
too. Me
it's
too. But I want to get back to Night Eyes and Fitz, basically.
Yeah.
I want to know what's going on with my boy. Like that Fitz and Night Eyes and that whole world. I really love. I really enjoyed that. I read that last year. I had never even heard of it in BookTok again, and I was just lost in that for a good couple of weeks and months. So
Yeah,
I
I found it because years ago, when Game of Thrones, the TV show started,
uh
I was not really into fantasy back then, but I wanted to see that show. Everyone was talking about it, but I'm the type of person that has to read the book first.
yeah.
So I went out and I got a Game of Thrones book, read it on the subway commuting to work. I used to do a ton of reading on the train, and I flew through the books. And I finished the books. Yeah, it's probably my favorite fantasy series just because it's what got me into it. But then I finished it and I was like, I jumped right on Google and I was like, who do I read if I want to feel like this again? And I kept seeing Robin Hobb. So I was like, all right, I guess we're jumping into Robin Hobb. And I read the first book and then got away from it for years and then reread it a few years ago. And that's like, I've been back in the world since then. And I think that she's another example of like, she does characters so well that even if you don't like fantasy, I think you could enjoy these books just by how amazing she can develop a character and really make you feel like you're part of their world and their life. And it's another example of, especially you start with Fitz when he's 5. You get to see so much of his life.
Well, don't you kind of feel like the same thing you were saying? Like it all kind of converges, right? Like what you were saying about loving slice of life books.
Yeah.
Part of that kind of translates into fantasy for me too, because what I'm noticing is the parts of the fantasy series or the book I love are what I guess people would consider the more slow, mundane, slice of life parts of the story. Like the battle's gonna be the battle and the magic's gonna be the magic, and I'm gonna love it because it's designed for you to love it. It's hitting all the, it's hitting all the points. But those like you're reading a series and the second book is a little slower because it's slowly world building. That's the part I kind of love now, where you understand like how they live and what they
Yeah, me
eat,
too.
the culture and the spirituality and the all the tension. That's the slice of life stuff. Maybe we're getting, maybe it's because we're in our 40s and we're like,
It
I
could
don't know what it is. But I love that. And to that point, part of the reason why I would not consider romance one of my favorite genres by itself is, for me, when fantasy is done really well or slice of life books are done really well, romance is always in there.
yeah.
And it's usually done really well. So it almost feels redundant to, like, it's almost like you're taking a a super focused look at just the romantic part of a book, but I like to just look a little bit wider, and the romance is still happening. I'll be reading a fantasy book and the romance is happening, and I'm cheering it on, and some of it's kind of cringe. It might not be my thing, but I like it within the bigger story.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's interesting too because it's like I saw something the other day and have you seen the comedy? It's called Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Mhm,
It's from yeah. It's so someone was interviewing Jason Segel and he wrote that and starred in it.
mhm.
And he was talking, I think he was talking about Judd Apatow was like, "Write a drama." He's like, "Don't try and write a comedy, write a drama." He's like, "You are a funny person, so you're going to tell this very, like, traumatic breakup story, and
Mm,
it's gonna be funny because of who you are." He's like, "But don't try and write the humor, it's just gonna be there.
that's
The
true.
drama is the part that people are gonna like, that's what's gonna keep people interested in the story." And he's like,
That's
"And if you have to jazz up a couple parts with jokes, I'll help you with that." But he's like, "Write a drama, don't focus on a comedy." And it's I feel like
yes,
fantasy, a good fantasy is very much that, like like you were just saying,
yes.
because the story is gonna be there, and then the funny parts, the romance, that's all just gonna naturally be there if you're a good storyteller because that's part of life.
So did you end up watching Game of Thrones, the TV show, after you read the books?
I did. I did,
Ooh.
and it was, really like the first few seasons.
I think everyone really liked the first few seasons.
You know, it's the last 2 I had a hard time with. Season 7, a lot of people are just mad at the last season, but
Yeah,
season 7 wasn't great either.
I agree.
I wa I watched it all in a day. There were 7 episodes. Not
Fine.
binged them all in one day.
Hindsight being 2020, I feel like if you don't read the books and you watch the TV show, especially now if you binge it without, because there was so much emotion when you were watching it week to week and it was happening in culture that you were expecting things to happen because you were rabid. It's not as bad as when you were back then. It's the last two seasons are still not great. There's a lot of loose ends, but it's not as, it felt like devastation at the time. It felt like, how could you end this show like this?
Yeah.
But yeah, I still love that show though. I still love that show.
I was thinking about rewatching it because I haven't seen it in years. I was mad at the showrunners for a couple things though. I was mad that they justified that episode that was so dark you couldn't see anything.
I agree. It's
And
stupid.
they kept being like, I even saw people on Twitter, and they were like, "Well, your TV must suck." And it's like, I'm watching this in the dark, and I have to turn the brightness up.
I watched it in the dark and it was so hard to watch.
And it's like there's no valid reason in terms of storytelling for it to have to be that way.
I agree.
And I also think that like I'm not as mad at some of the things that people are like. I'm not as mad at Daenerys's ending.
No,
She
I'm not
like
either.
her family was mad. But, like,
Definitely.
I am mad at certain parts where it's just, like, they threw away some amazing character development, like
Yes.
Jaime Lannister, just multiple seasons of him becoming a better person, let's just throw it all away.
Sort of.
It's like, it's so much buildup to just revert them back to who they were at the beginning of the story, and it's like, well, that's not very interesting, like, we already
No,
saw that version of him,
I
he
agree.
sucked.
I remember at the time being devastated by the ending of like it kind of like all boiling down to Bran the Broken.
Yeah,
I don't mind that so much as I thought I would, because technically to your point, like everyone, although you have your favorites, everyone was hungry for power and unhinged in your
yeah,
own. And so technically like it would be like poetic justice that this kid who was kind of witnessed everyone's ill behavior from a bed basically,
yeah,
and was in tune with nature, of course, and all these things, would be the person that would be like the peace bringer, if you will. And so I think again, like when you're watching the first time, you have all this bloodlust and you want scorched earth and revenge, but that didn't bother me. But I agree, there were some harsh endings, even with Arya.
yeah.
What an amazing character to drop the ball with her skills and just her involvement. Like, even
So
though,
much buildup, and then we're just left with so many questions.
yeah, like that frustrated me. That frustrated me, and also I feel like for a show that had spent so much money making this world so vast. I know the last two seasons were expensive, but they were kind of expensive for the wrong reasons. Like
Yeah,
you could
I
have
agree.
stretched it out for a couple more episodes and given us more slice of life.
Yeah.
Um, and less dragons and stuff like that, because we in my opinion, we deserve to know what happened to these people that we love and their relationships more than let's just burn the whole shit down.
Yeah, and I feel like some of the deaths were kind of a cop out too, and, spoiler alert, it should have been said, but it's been years, guys, don't get
It's
mad at
been a
me.
long time. Get
But,
over it.
like, especially Jamie and Cersei dying together, the way that they died, she deserved so much worse.
The way they died was so
She
lame.
Yeah, she deserved to go out in some epic way and not with Jamie by her side,
I
and,
agree.
there's just, like we went through basically a montage of people dying in just really lame ways, and it's like, I'm okay with character death because George R. R. Martin was not shy about killing characters.
Right.
So it's like I was used to that and I was okay with that, but it's like a lot of it just didn't have meaning other than, "Okay, I gotta end the story," and it's like, that was the part that let me down. It's just, like,
I agree. I agree.
so much
And
build up to just be mediocre.
even before she died, there's an angle of Cersei's character specifically that I felt like they didn't give her a chance to fully explain to somebody, like
Right.
someone she loved or someone she trusted, me be it Jamie. Like the unspoken truth of her character was that technically, in a fair world, she was always the most equipped
Yeah.
to run King's Landing,
Yep.
if not for the fact that she was a woman. And you see it happening over and over again where she's getting overlooked by her dad and her brothers, but she never ever really says, I'm I've become the villain that you know because I actually deserved this. I was the one who was the smart one. I was the one who was good at government and all this stuff. She kind of goes rogue for her kids, which is understandable because she wants one of them to take power. But you never see her have that honest moment before she dies of like, not all this could have been remedied had dad just given me the keys to the kingdom, basically.
Exactly.
Like he should have.
Yep.
And
No,
that's kind of the basis of the whole freaking show.
yeah, that's a fantastic point, and it is, and that's such a missed opportunity. Is like she still could have died,
Still
but
could
it's like,
should have died. But
but it should have had more meaning, and it should have had more explanation, and it's like they got it right a couple times. Like the way the Hound went out, I'm cool with that. Like that's the way his character kind of
oh yeah.
should run out. Is like, you know, standing up for good after years of being the bully, and like he went out on a shield. Like that makes sense for him. I'm good with that, but they
Yeah.
didn't do that for most of the characters, which was such a letdown.
So are you watching House of the Dragon now?
I watched season 1, I haven't watched season 2 yet because much like what you were saying earlier is that, like, I found myself when I have free time, I go towards a book or an audiobook. It's just, like it's holding my interest better. I I think my issue with TV shows now is the long breaks between seasons. I just stop caring.
Same.
It's too long, and I get that they're doing these big productions, and I get that shows have changed, but it's like you used to be able to have a show that only took, like, 10 weeks off in the summer,
Yeah.
and it came back for another 26 episodes, 22 episodes, and it's like, I think that we don't need everything to be huge special effects. We could use practical effects again. We could use, more storytelling versus more, like, you don't have to show us the giant dragon every episode.
Exactly.
Once a season would work.
And also like the theme of this conversation is a slice of life, right? But
Yeah.
that has also been fully kind of removed from TV as well. So like they're always aiming for like the big shock things. So it's just like superheroes and huge like big budget things, and you've lost all those like just really good stories about life and relationships, romance, comedies, things that like keep you throughout the year besides the July 4th blockbuster and the Christmas movies, you know? So books fill that void. And for me, like I'm getting all this detail about life. You're still getting the action and you're still getting all that stuff as well. But I agree with you. I'm getting a lot more. I feel fulfilled by the storytelling and by the things I'm learning from characters and kind of like putting myself in those shoes and seeing things through different people's eyes. And so yeah, like it's the book era. Like we're in the book era right now. Like I still every now and then I turn my TV on to watch like I love cooking competitions if I need a brain break or a couple of things that are there just in case. But for the most part, my life is books. And books slow time down. Have you know like
Yeah.
there's three paces, right? Social media eats time the fastest. You go online and an hour's gone in a blink of an eye.
Yeah, it's like, what did I do? I like, what videos did I just scroll past? I don't remember, but I did.
That's what I'm saying. An hour goes by. A TV hour is also fast, but not as long. A book hour is much longer.
Yes.
So it feels like your day feels a little bit more paced when you
Yeah.
read.
And I sprinkle it in throughout the day too. Like I love to put on an audiobook as I cook breakfast.
Same.
And I especially love just like when I have time to go to a cafe and have
Mhm.
just like, especially in the winter for some reason, a hot latte and a book in my hand, like those two together. It's like that's a
Yes.
great way to spend an afternoon.
Yes. Yes. 100%. Like it's a whole experience. The bookstore is an experience.
Yeah.
The place to read the book is an experience. Audiobooks. Like today, I'm in Nashville and it's been pouring all. It's been like thunderstorming all day. It's a perfect reading day. Like just to have a physical book and immersive read with it, and you kind of hear the rain in the background. So like I don't know,
My
like
favorite too.
it's awesome.
Yeah, we had a thunderstorm here today too at like 3 o'clock, which was right when I was getting dressed to go do errands. And I was like, this is terrible. I should be in bed reading instead of
Yeah.
going to get cat food and brake pads for my car.
Yeah. You don't want to be doing that in the rain.
No.
What are you reading right now?
I just finished a book called Ace of Spades, which
Mm.
was a YA thriller. and I just pulled. I'm gonna have to Google it because I forgot the name of it, but I just pulled from my TBR jar. House of Bone and Rain by Gabino Iglesias.
Good book.
I've read, what was it? The Devil Takes You Home. I read that last year and everyone said it was good, and I went into it with high expectations, and I couldn't believe how much I was blown away by it. Like, it was so much better than my already high expectations.
It was a good. That's the one that got me introduced to the author, and I read them both last year, I think, or yeah. But yeah, you're gonna have a good time with that one.
Yeah, he can write. I was glad when I pulled that because it's like, I'm going for all of September and October. I just want fall vibes. Like, it doesn't have to all be horror, but I want it
Yeah,
to be, like, a little bit spooky or dark academia, like,
that's why I started with Salem's Lot because I was like, let's just get
such a
these
good one.
vibes going. I'm gonna finish it probably tonight. I I'm off to a good fall season with that book for sure.
You message me when you do, because I'm really curious how once it's all done, how you feel about it, because I really liked that. I Yeah, that's a good
Okay, no, I will, because I don't want it to end like if it's no. Most of his books are so long. This one is feels too short. I've never said
yeah.
about this book, but this one feels too short.
Now, normally I like to keep these episodes around an hour, and we're already past an hour, and I'm sure we could go another hour easily talking about all this stuff. But I would be remiss if I didn't ask, and everyone watching would be mad at me if I didn't ask for at least like one of your highlights from your music career. Like, who was the coolest person to work with? Or, I mean,
Um,
I saw that one of your songs ended up being recorded by Michael Jackson, so that's probably hard to top. But, like, who stands out to you when you look back the last, like, 15 years?
okay, well, to be fair, the Michael Jackson thing is cool, but what makes it not my top moment is because first of all, he's my favorite artist of all time. So there's a lot of to celebrate there. But I didn't work with him person to person when it happened.
Right.
Just I wrote this song with Akon, and I was not in town when they did it. They recorded in Vegas while I was in New York. So it was kind of a surprise to me, which is one of the best surprises ever. But because I wasn't there, I don't have an actual memory with him. I never met him. But one of my other favorite artists of all time is Whitney Houston. I grew up listening to Whitney Houston, and I worked a lot with her on her last album. I did 3 songs that made the album. We worked on more than that, but 3 songs made the album. And so that's a highlight for me because obviously she's iconic, and she's you know, everyone loves her for the voice, but I got to know the person, and she was very supportive when I was very young in my career. You know, it's a big deal to work with anyone, but that was like one of my early big kind of moments, and I was working with an icon, and she was very supportive of my singing, my writing, my ideas. And so the songs on that album weren't like these big hits. I've had bigger hits on other artists, but the time spent with someone that was so legendary, kind of I hold that near and dear to my heart. And the advice she gave me, which is advice I've taken with me like in all of my endeavors, but especially music, is like really valuable. She was always talking about doing light music, and by light music, like doing things that were positive or uh, could uplift or inspire people. And so there's that thread in her. I mean, a lot of her songs are about love, our greatest love of all, I will always love you, all that.
Yeah.
And that was the thing, but just in general, to make sure that the reasons for doing it were to inspire people. And that's definitely something I took as a mission for how and why I make music. So she's one that I think is kind of special in terms of like, you know, you grow up seeing someone, then one day you're in the room with them. You're like, how the hell did this happen? That's cool. But and then on just like the you know, the kind of huge song, you know, can't believe I have this kind of a hit record. My goal when I was a kid was always to have the kind of song that was classic enough to play on like this sounds so corny now, but like on the easy listening station. Like, you know, that radio station that like just plays everything. I call the dentist office station. Like it's just playing
Yeah,
the
where
best
any type
90s
of music fan could hear it and be like, "Oh, yeah, okay. I know this one."
because the songs are just that synonymous with just like a, you know, life. And so I have a few of those that are kind of in that rotation. Grenade for Bruno Mars being one of them, but I think the best known one is probably Party in the USA.
Yeah.
So
I know all the words to that song, and I'm not even a Miley fan per se. Like, she's an amazing talent, but it's just like, I mean, and especially it's like at any party, if that song comes on, people are gonna be hyped because everybody knows it.
That's what
You
I
nailed
mean.
it
Like
perfectly. Like,
it's that song that like I know I nailed one that the world will sing along probably long after I'm gone. Like it's also become like this like the unofficial July 4th, like the national anthem. Like it spikes every July 4th because people play it like it's probably more than the Star Spangled Banner at this point.
yeah.
So that's very, very cool just from a songwriter perspective because that's the goal is to get one of those. I've had a couple, but that one you can't escape that one.
No, everybody knows that one.
Yeah. But so listen, a music career is much like an office career. You're just writing with the hopes that somebody will like it. And sometimes they do, oftentimes they don't, but you keep on going anyway. So I've had like, waves in the music industry, in the music business, across all genres, R&B, country, jazz, pop, hip hop, all kind of stuff. But I'm I'm just grateful to get to do what I love for a living. I know that's not everyone's able to do that, so I don't take it for granted. And I don't dwell on the past because, you have to keep looking forward, but I'm very proud of what I've done and the people I've been able to work with because I know that's not like a simple feat. So
No, it's it.
I'm proud. I love music with all my heart, and so the fact I get to do it and do it on this level is awesome.
No, that is amazing, and I do love and I respect the fact that you didn't start your TikTok with like, "Hey, here's my success stories." You're just like, "Hey, I'm a guy that reads books," and you waited, and now everyone. I saw some of the comments too. People are like, "Wait, what? I had no idea." And I was like, I saw that, and I was like on my computer as I'm watching the rest of your video. I'm like, Wikipedia, let's go.
What who is this guy?
I'm
But
like, you
it's
said so. You like
everyone's genuine.
once you mentioned songs playing in a grocery store that everyone's heard, I was like, okay, I have to know which ones. 'Cause that really that's exactly what you're just talking about is, like, the one for me, I was like, when my daughter was little she's, 16 now. When she was little, she went through a Bruno Mars phase. She loved, Bruno Mars, so it's like, I've heard "Grenade" so many times.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like a lot of times I'll be like in the grocery store and it's playing, and it's just random that I happen to be in there and I'm watching people kind of like shop and they're singing "Not Your Friend," and I'm in the aisle grabbing my milk and I'm like, she has no idea that the guy who wrote the song is grabbing his milk as well. It's not like
I'm getting my eggs too.
like yeah, I'm just here getting my songwriters. They're just like us. Uh, but that's kind of like my own little personal inside joke slash fun thing that because music lives on far far longer than we do, so it's cool to be putting things out there that hopefully will be around for a while.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on again. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your week.
Of course, we'll clearly we have to do this again, and we have so much more to talk about. So
Yeah, absolutely. And
part one.
now in the description, I always link to people's social media. I'll link to your TikTok, and do you have a Bookstagram as well? I can't remember who I follow on there. I don't go on
I have a
there often.
Bookstagram, but I think I'm gonna like I have a personal one and a Bookstagram. I've never used my Bookstagram, so I think I'm gonna like just consolidate and just go straight to my regular Instagram.
All right, well, I'll make sure that I throw the links in the episode description, so everybody, if you don't already follow Claude, you absolutely should. The reviews are fantastic. I love the lists you come up with, and I love that I feel like we have very similar taste overall, but we also are similar in wanting to branch out to new things. So I'm always like, one of your video pops up, I'm like, all right, let's see what's there. There's going to be something new.
Same. Likewise, likewise.
And thank you everybody for tuning in for another episode of Books and Beyond with that guy Jay. And again, if you could just hit that like button, it really helps the algorithm. And I will see you guys again next week.